Deep inside the largest pyramid ever built, a robot the size of a shoebox just rolled up to a stone door that has not been touched by human hands in 4,500 years. Nobody has opened it yet. But the world's most famous living Egyptologist just stood in front of a live audience and said that whatever is behind it is going to rewrite a chapter of ancient history. If that sentence gave you chills, good, because this is not some vague internet rumor. This is a real ongoing archaeological story unfolding right now, backed by actual scans, actual robots, and actual scientists with their names attached to peer-reviewed research. Stay with me for the next few minutes, because by the end of this video you will understand exactly what has been found so far, why nobody has cracked that door open just yet, and why one of the most respected archaeologists alive believes this could be the biggest pyramid discovery in over a century. Let's start with the pyramid itself, because you cannot appreciate how strange this discovery is without appreciating just how much we thought we already knew about this building. The Great Pyramid of Giza was built for the pharaoh Khufu somewhere between roughly 2509 and 2483 BC, using an estimated 2.3 million individual limestone blocks stacked into a structure they stood as the tallest human-made object on Earth for nearly 4,000 years. It is the only surviving wonder of the ancient world, the last one still standing out of the seven wonders that used to define what humanity considered its greatest architectural achievements. For most of modern history, archaeologists believed they had a complete map of its interior. 3 known chambers, called the Subterranean Chamber, the Queen's Chamber, and the King's Chamber, connected by a small number of well-documented passageways, all of which have been studied, measured, and photographed for well over a century. That assumption started falling apart in 2015, when an international team of engineers, physicists, and archaeologists launched something called the Scan Pyramids Project, a collaboration between researchers from Cairo University, the French Heritage Innovation Preservation Institute, and several universities across Europe. Their approach was completely different from anything archaeologists had tried before, because instead of digging, drilling, or damaging the pyramid in any way, which Egyptian law strictly forbids on a monument this significant, the team turned to a genuinely strange branch of particle physics called Muon radiography. Here is how that actually works, because it sounds like science fiction, but it is very real, well-established science. Cosmic rays constantly bombard Earth's atmosphere from deep space, and when they collide with air molecules, they produce a shower of subatomic particles called muons, which rain down on the surface of our planet constantly. Passing through solid rock and stone almost as easily as light passes through glass. Almost all of them pass straight through, but a small fraction get absorbed or deflected, dependent G on the density of the material they pass through. By placing extremely sensitive detectors at different points around and even underneath the pyramid, and carefully counting how many muons make it through from different angles over weeks and months. Of continuous observation, researchers can essentially build an X-ray image of the pyramid's interior using nothing but naturally occurring particles falling from space. Solid limestone blocks absorb muons at a predictable, consistent rate. An empty pocket of air hidden inside that same limestone lets noticeably more muons through, showing up in the data as a telltale signature of a hollow space that should not be there. In 2017, this method delivered its first genuinely stunning result. The Scan Pyramids team announced the discovery of an enormous hidden void sitting directly above the pyramid's Grand Gallery, at least 30 meters long, a space so large that researchers nicknamed it the Big Void, and confirmed its existence using 3 completely independent muon detection techniques, each one built and operated by a separate research group using different equipment, specifically so that no single team's technical mistake could accidentally produce a false result. When all 3 methods converged on the same conclusion, the finding was published in the peer-reviewed journal Nature, one of the most rigorously vetted scientific publications in the world. Salima Ikram, a respected Egyptologist at the American University in Cairo, noted that the void's position directly above the Grand Gallery might even be connected to how that famous corridor was originally constructed thousands of years ago. Nobody knew what the Big Void actually contained, because muon radiography can tell you that empty space exists and roughly how large it is, but it cannot see through that space to show you what, if anything, sits inside it. That uncertainty only deepened in February of 2023, when the same research team used a tiny flexible camera called an endoscope to peer into a separate, smaller corridor on the pyramid's north face, one hidden behind decorative chevron-shaped stonework, roughly 17 to 23 meters above ground level. What they found was a corridor measuring about 9 meters long and 2 meters wide, confirmed using both radar and an actual physical camera feed for the first time, giving archaeologists their first direct visual confirmation that these Muon-detected anomalies really were genuine architectural spaces, not some strange statistical artifact of the detection method itself. While we are talking about physicists using cosmic rays from outer space to peer through a 4,500-year-old building without so much as scratching it, if this kind of real, evidence-based archaeology is exactly what you come to this channel for, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe if you have not already, because the story is about to get a lot more specific. This brings us to November of 2025, when veteran Egyptologist Zahi Hawass, Egypt's former Minister of Antiquities, and easily the most publicly recognized archaeologist working in the country today, stood on stage at the Sharjah International Book Fair in the United Arab Emirates and made an announcement that immediately went viral across the Middle East and beyond. Using advanced scanning instruments, Hawass explained, his team had identified a 30-meter-long corridor deep inside the pyramid, positioned above the Grand Gallery, essentially confirming and extending the same big void first detected back in 2017. But this time, there was a new detail that had never been publicly confirmed before. At the far end of that corridor sits a sealed stone, door untouched, unopened, and completely unexplored since the day workers finished sealing it away during the Fourth Dynasty, more than 4,500 years ago. Because the passageway itself is far too small and structurally fragile for any human being to safely enter, Hawass's team has been relying on small, remote-operated robots, equipped with high-definition cameras and gentle cleaning tools, carefully navigating centuries of accumulated dust and debris without disturbing anything that might still be intact inside. According to Hawass, these robots have already physically reached the sealed door itself, close enough to examine its surface and construction in detail, even though nobody has attempted to open it yet. Speaking about the discovery, Hawass did not hold back on how significant he believes this could be, stating plainly that he believes something very important is hidden beneath that corridor, and separately describing the eventual reveal as something that will rewrite a chapter of the history of the pharaohs. Here is where the story gets even more interesting, because Hawass was refreshingly direct about ruling out the kind of wild speculation that inevitably follows a story like this one. During the same appearance, he explicitly addressed and dismissed fringe theories that sometimes attach themselves to pyramid discoveries, stating clearly that no extraterrestrial beings or supernatural forces were involved in the construction of the pyramid, and instead walking the audience through the genuinely impressive, well-documented engineering methods ancient Egyptian workers used, including massive supply ramps and sophisticated quarry logistics that allowed a Bronze Age civilization to move and stack over 2 million precisely cut stone blocks with a level of coordination that still impresses modern engineers today. So what does Hawass actually think might be behind that door, based purely on the archaeological evidence, not speculation? He has been fairly open about his personal hopes, describing two long-standing goals that have driven much of his career. The first T is locating the lost tomb of Imhotep, the legendary architect who designed Egypt's very first pyramid, the Step Pyramid of Djoser, and who was later worshipped almost T as a deity for his genius centuries after his death, despite his actual burial site never being found. The second is the tomb of Queen Nefertiti, one of the most iconic and mysterious figures in all of Egyptian history, whose final resting place has never been conclusively identified despite decades of searching. Whether either of these long-sought discoveries is actually connected to this specific sealed door remains completely unconfirmed, and Hawass himself has been careful to frame these as personal hopes rather than confirmed conclusions. But the sheer possibility is exactly why archaeologists and casual history fans alike have been watching this story so closely. There is also a very practical, very human reason this particular discovery is generating so much attention beyond pure archaeological curiosity. The anticipated 2026 reveal lines up closely with the long-awaited full opening of the Grand Egyptian Museum, an enormous new facility built near the Giza Plateau, specifically to house Egypt's most significant artifacts, including the complete treasures of Tutankhamun displayed together for the first time in history. Egypt has openly used major archaeological announcements to boost tourism before, since tourism remains one of the country's largest sources of foreign currency, and a discovery of this scale, timed to coincide with the museum's opening, could meaningfully shape how the entire world thinks about visiting Giza for years to come. It is worth pausing here to separate the confirmed archaeology from the anticipation, because that distinction matters enormously. What has been independently verified through peer-reviewed research and multiple detection methods includes the existence of the big void above the Grand Gallery, the smaller corridor on the pyramid's north face, confirmed visually with an endoscope camera in 2023, and now, according to Hawass's public statements, a 30-meter passage leading to a genuinely sealed stone door that robotic probes have physically reached. What remains unconfirmed, and should be treated as exactly that until an official excavation team actually opens the door and documents whatever lies behind it, is any specific claim about what that space actually contains. Nobody, including Hawass himself, has definitively stated that a body, a tomb, or any specific artifact sits behind that door. What he has said is that his team believes something significant is there, and that the full reveal is expected sometime in 2026. This same pattern of careful, evidence-based discovery followed by patient, methodical confirmation has actually been playing out simultaneously at a completely different pyramid on the same plateau. In 2025, a separate research team working with the Scan Pyramids project, this time focused on the smaller Menkaure pyramid, the third and final major structure at Giza, used a combination of ground-penetrating radar, ultrasound, and a technique called electrical resistivity tomography to confirm the presence of two previously unknown air-filled voids behind the pyramid's eastern face. This finding gave the first genuine scientific support to a decades-old suspicion among archaeologists that a second entrance might exist on that side of the structure, a theory researchers had floated as far back as 2019 based on the unusually polished granite blocks covering that particular section of the pyramid's exterior. Christian Gross, a professor specializing in non-destructive testing techniques at the Technical University of Munich and one of the lead researchers on that project, explained that their combined testing methodology allows extremely precise conclusions about a pyramid's interior structure without causing any physical damage whatsoever to a monument this irreplaceable. Taken together, these two parallel discoveries, the sealed door deep inside the Great Pyramid and the newly confirmed voids inside Menkaure's pyramid, paint a picture that should genuinely surprise anyone who assumed Egyptology had already answered its biggest questions decades ago. These are structures that have been studied continuously since the 1800s, walked through by millions of tourists, and photographed from nearly every conceivable angle, and modern physics is still finding entirely new spaces inside them that nobody previously knew existed. That alone says something remarkable about how much of the ancient world remains hidden in plain sight, waiting for the right tool to finally reveal it. So where does that leave us right now, as of the middle of 2026? The corridor has been located. The sealed door has been reached by robotic probes and examined from the outside. Egypt's most prominent archaeologist has publicly stated that opening it could rewrite a portion of pharaonic history, timed deliberately to coincide with one of the largest museum openings in the country's modern history. What nobody can honestly tell you yet, because nobody has verified it through an actual opening and archaeological documentation process, is precisely what waits on the other side. It could be a previously undiscovered burial chamber. It could be a structural void tied to how the pyramid itself was engineered. It could, as Hawass has hinted at personally, connect to one of Egyptian history's most tantalizing unsolved mysteries. Or it could turn out to be something far more modest than the anticipation currently suggests, since archaeology has a long, humbling history of discoveries that generate enormous public excitement before turning out to be structurally interesting but historically unremarkable. What makes this story worth following closely, regardless of which outcome eventually plays out, is that every single sane epi leading up to this moment has been documented, published, and subjected to independent verification using multiple, separate scientific techniques, from cosmic ray physics to ground-penetrating radar to direct camera footage. That is precisely the kind of careful, patient, evidence-driven process that separates a genuine archaeological breakthrough from an internet rumor, and it is exactly why so many serious researchers, not just headline writers, are paying close attention to what happens when that door finally swings open. If you want to actually know what is behind that door the moment credible, verified. Information comes out instead of getting caught up in whatever wild speculation inevitably floods social media first. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel, because this is one of the biggest ongoing archaeological stories in the world right now, and we will be covering the reveal in full detail the moment it happens.